Welcome to this week's episode of Operation Support Local. I am your host, Derek Fage, and as you can see, I'm standing outside of one of the most beautiful buildings here in Ottawa. But before I get to that, I want to let you know that we've been receiving some great feedback from you, and thank you so much. So keep those comments coming, and you can visit our website, rogerstv.com, to find out more information about the show and how you can share a story idea with us. Well, we do start at this beautiful building. We are at the Canadian Museum of Nature, and they are just about ready to reopen to the public, of course, with new health and safety protocols. Have a look.
We had to kind of reimagine ourselves for our visitors to become a safe and also a happy space going forward. So what does that mean in terms of visitor flow? What does it mean in terms of social distancing? What did we have to close down? What could we keep open? And all of that happened over Teams or Zoom calls amongst the staff, trying to work things out, downloading floor plans, working out the pinch points in the museum and what we could do. At the same time, when we thought we were going to open, we thought we were going to be opening a new exhibition in about 2 months. So we were in the last kind of 3 months hectic activity towards getting that exhibition built and done, the final design, etc. And all of that had to stop, and we had to learn how to design an exhibition online. So that was really an interesting experience, and the team has done a fantastic job actually in both working as a team here, but we have suppliers in Montreal, across Canada, and even internationally we needed to work with. We had to kind of reimagine the visitor experience. You know, normally it's a kind of a bit of a free-for-all. People come through the front door, they charge off in whatever direction they want to do, but we can no longer do that. We wanted to make sure that our visitors felt safe, they could socially distance. So the first thing is we are controlling capacity to the museum. So we're only letting 250 people into the museum at any one time. So there'll be plenty of space to kind of look around and observe a little bit more. You will need to buy your ticket online, and it's a time ticket of 25 people every 15 minutes. The biggest change you will have when you first come into the museum is you don't come through the museum doors. You actually come to our new welcome tent, which is right outside the museum, and that's where your online ticket will be scanned, and you will be kind of given information about your visit to go through. And that way we don't have, you know, we are a historic building with not a lot of space, and that enables us to actually let people flow through safely into the building. So we have very clear messaging that we'll have all over the museum. We have an animation that people can see on site about the rules and regulations. We also have directional arrows all over the floor, and of course we have used our wonderful Martin the Moose icon to show people that they should social distance, because, you know, the size of his antlers here are 2 meters apart. So we're just letting people know that. So he's come into play too. So we want to have a little bit of fun with it as well as getting people to do this directional flow around the museum. The other really important thing that people might find a little different is that we've actually told people, we're asking people to go up one side of the museum and down the other. So you're kind of going up one elevator all the way to the 4th floor, then you cross over and you come down the other side. At the bottom, to help you kind of cross over the atrium, we have what we are kind of calling internally traffic circle, which you will then walk around so that you can keep the flow going. And that has a big convex mirror on it because it reflects all of the atrium as well. And that's a fantastic view now, as we no longer have the desk. So it's going to be a different experience, but I think it's going to be an experience which people will discover things that they haven't seen before, because it's a slower pace and they have more time to kind of look at some of the fabulous specimens that we actually have here at the museum. All the galleries are open, but some of the high touch points within the galleries we have closed. For example, our bird hospital or our bird clinic has been plexiglassed and shut off. Similarly, our cave on the Earth Gallery is no longer open because we couldn't we couldn't actually make sure of people's safety in there. But we have kept some of our interactors open. We've kept interactors open where we think that there isn't a pinch point, so people won't gather around and cause other people not to be able to move past, and also where there is, we can put hand sanitizers as well. So it's not all just going to be stop and stare. There will still be some interactivity. Our theatre will also be closed, and our cafe is also closed. We do have vending machines on site though, but we're asking people not to bring their own food into the building, again for safety reasons. We won't have our water fountains open, so people can bring in water bottles as well. And of course, finally, our boutique is definitely open. Every Saturday and Sunday from 10 to 11 is for members only. But we have the last hour of every day, for the weekdays, from Wednesday to Friday, is free to the public. But on both those, you still have to book a ticket online. We're really encouraging you to do that. We are not set up really to take cash and do ticketing here at the building. So we want to make sure that you buy a ticket online. And we are lucky because we've had a lot of experience of time ticketing and getting that process right, because of course we had to put it into place for butterflies. So we're already pretty good at doing that, and I think it's going to be a pretty smooth experience.
Well, we're going to head back into the Canadian Museum of Nature in just a few minutes, but next up we're heading to the Parkdale United Church, and Julie Buin had a chance to catch up with Reverend Dr. Anthony Bailey. Like many different organizations, they've had to pivot and change the way that they practice what they do best, and that's worshiping.
Parkdale United has been in the community for a long time. Who is your community? Who do you represent? And why is that such a powerful voice for the inner city community?
Well, Parkdale is a very special place. I've been here for 20 years now. And what I've discovered when I first came is that the congregation certainly reflected to some extent, though not fully, the neighborhood in which we found ourselves. And one of my interests was to say that I believe that the gospel and the way in which we are meant to live in community, especially faith community, requires that we pay attention to who we're living with, who are our neighbors. And so there was an important way of reaching out to the community and seeing that there were diverse peoples, differently abled people, also of different socioeconomic status, but also from different backgrounds as well, ethnic backgrounds. And we began to see a movement in our congregation of people from the neighborhood as well as flung far and wide, coming to make this a very special place.
What happened to your church when the lockdown occurred?
And it was great shock, as it was to everybody, you know, that what are we going to do? But we felt for the safety of our people and the recommendations that came from the health authorities, we needed to do that. So we had to pivot to find a way in which we could reach out and still help those who were in dire situations. People are living alone. We have older folks. We have people who are newly arrived in Canada. We wanted to make sure that they were safe. And so we began a telephone tree, calling people, Zooming with people, and then we had to begin to create online services. So we have recorded services that we do so people could use YouTube and see our weekly services, and we've continued that. But it's been challenging.
What did Parkdale United do immediately after the City of Ottawa announced that we were going into a lockdown during the pandemic?
Well, we put the message out to our congregation that we were closed. We were not able to receive people in person, but that we were not closed in terms of our ministry and our love for each other and our connection. So immediately we started to create sort of a telephone tree situation. We activated what we have what's called a pastoral care team that particularly looks out for those who are experiencing hardship in a variety of ways. And so we started communicating through our congregational email to let people know that although we have to close, we want you to know that we are here for you. Situations that are necessary to respond to, we're going to do our best.
How has your fundraising ability and the contributions of the congregation been affected by the pandemic?
I have to say I'm so pleased and heartened by the fact that people have not only kept up their contributions, but also have increased. And more than that, because our services now are being watched not only by our congregation, you know, when it goes out on YouTube, anybody can see it. So we're getting people from across Canada, and the United States, some Caribbean islands, 3 African countries, people who are sending messages saying thank you for this service, and some of them are making contributions also to our ministry, even though they don't belong to our congregation. So actually we have been fairly well served by those who have continued to be generous, recognizing that we have a commitment that we make. So one of the interesting things, for instance, there was an appeal that went out, you may have remembered, that from Ottawa City Inner City Health, and for gowns and PPE, that sort of thing. And so I put the word out to our congregation, and you would be amazed at what happened. They mobilized, the women and men got together, they got cloth and began to make gowns, and delivered, I think, probably about 20, I don't want to say the wrong thing, maybe about 2,500, I believe, in total, that in the end. And there's a huge group of people, I think about 40, 50 people, who not only from our congregation but other places, who came together to make sure that the healthcare workers, those who are working with those experiencing poverty on the street, the Ottawa Mission and so forth, receive what was necessary in order to protect themselves.
So what is your message of hope?
Message of hope is that we need to look at how we can learn from what we've gone through. As I mentioned before, I think that the status quo has been broken to some extent. It's been exposed. And so this is a timely opportunity for us to draw from that what can be restorative, what can really challenge that status quo, and to say, here's how we're going to live now. We're going to make sure that there's space for the voices that have been closed and have been muted before. We're going to make sure to look much more incisively and concertedly at the policies that we have, at the ways in which people are prevented from advancing, the way in which the systemic ways of doing things have circumscribed the well-being of populations. And so I think the hope is that this is an opportunity that can be seized. It's not going to be done automatically. It still requires vigor and vigilance and engagement, but I believe that it is possible. And I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful for what I hear from people, from the young people who are reaching out to me and saying, I'm ready to listen now. I can't believe I've been deaf to this for so long. I'm finally ready to listen. And that's hopeful to me.
Well, back in May, the owner of PranaShanti had a difficult decision to make. Does she close down her business or invest in expanding the business? Well, she decided to expand, and now she owns the only full-time yoga school right here in the city of Ottawa. Our reporter Julie Buin had a chance to catch up with her.
My journey with yoga started probably almost 20 years ago. With the recommendation from a coworker that it would probably be a good idea if I took some yoga classes to make me a nicer person. Oh, it was a hard lesson to hear, but in retrospect, it was exactly what I needed to do. I lived the life of a cubicle office worker with multiple screens and spending a lot of time on a keyboard, and just really making myself slowly unhappy by the fact that I wasn't really looking after myself very well, and I wasn't really taking good care of my health. I was slowly making myself an unhappy person.
In the early part of the pandemic, you faced a really big choice as a business person. Can you tell us what that was?
So, like many businesses, in March we were mandated to close. And as hard as that was, especially being a people-oriented business, I had to think very quickly about what we were going to do to keep our business going. And after I kind of pulled myself off my couch for about 12 hours having a deep think, I realized what we got to do is we've got to go online. We have to get online as quickly as possible. So right away put the classes online, and then put the trainings online as well, put the whole education piece online. So we were faced with this crossroads of what to do. You know, traditionally yoga classes are done in a yoga studio where everybody comes together, we experience a community experience together, and we chant, we do yoga postures, we meditate. But how are we going to do that online now? How do we make that transition? So as the months and weeks ticked by, I started to realize from our customers, from our students, that they want to stay together. They want to stay in a community vibration that is uplifting, and we certainly needed upliftment during the pandemic, particularly in the beginning. So how are we going to do that? And so the crossroads became, how do we maintain this and how do we keep this going? Because the traditional in-person classroom setup studio is not going to work anymore for quite a long time.
So the expansion that you have undergone has really changed your online presence. What does that look like now?
With the results of the pandemic, we knew we had to keep going in an online way. We had been doing some online work before, but now we knew we had to really expand. So we have the yoga practice workshop side of things, and then we've got the teacher training education side of things. So what really became a great opportunity for us as a side effect of the pandemic was that people really wanted to learn more, and they were really willing to take the time. And let's face it, we all had a lot of time to spend on self-improvement and self-development. So what I really focused on as we moved through the months was how I could expand and grow the education side as well as the yoga class side, maintain that, but really try to deliver and create experiences online from the education perspective. As the pandemic progressed, we ended up picking up people that wanted to join courses and trainings from all over the world. It was actually quite surprising and startling to me in some ways, because I thought, oh, it'll be nice, you know, people from, you know, an hour away or whatever that couldn't come in for a training can now join us online. But then I started to find out, oh, we had people from Egypt joining us online, from Iceland, from France, from Germany, from all across the United States, from the Caribbean, from Bali. And I'm like, okay, this is really pretty amazing that somebody's actually willing to stay up really late or get up really early in the morning because they really want to take this course with us. So I knew we were on to something pretty special. Everybody connects in via Zoom, and we've got our setup with a big screen TV for the teacher or the presenter to be able to see all the participants in the course, with a webcam and microphones, and it's actually really become quite a production. And I never thought, you know, 6 months ago that we would be like really creating like a sound studio, essentially, is what we ended up doing. And I did a lot of Google and a lot of talking to different high-tech people to find out, okay, what do you do to create like the best quality sound, the best quality visual that you can run in sort of this webinar online class kind of format. And I would really love to see us, you know, continue our reach, not just local, but expand national, expand internationally. I know because we've had people coming in from all over the world. So, and you know, possibly there's the opportunity to franchise as well, and that, you know, people can then have the PranaShanti experience in different parts of this country or other countries.
Through all of this turmoil, what would you say has been the most important lesson that you've taken away?
There are a lot of lessons out of all of this turmoil. Some of my main lessons have been, one that I constantly say in teacher training programs is to trust the process, and trusting myself, trusting that I've put enough work in for the results to actually come. I've also found out that adaptability is completely necessary, but there's also a skill with adaptability. It's a skill set of its own. And complacency, where we were 6-8 months ago, we were complacent. And we've always got to be reinventing, finding, evolving, changing, and trusting the process. I am fully optimistic. I couldn't have dreamed that this was going to be as exciting as it is now 8 months ago. And now it's like, okay, well, we had to do it. It had to happen. So I'm like totally, fully optimistic. This is great.
As promised, we head back into the Canadian Museum of Nature for our second interview in this episode of Operation Support Local. And I don't want to give away too much, I'll leave it a bit of a mystery, but let me just say they have only one of 5 of these in the entire world, and as I understand it, the only one here in Canada. Let's head inside.
We're really excited. This is our fabulous new art installation called Gaia by the artist Luc Jerome. And he also did our moon installation that many people have come to see, which is currently in our lantern and still is in our lantern. The inspiration behind this piece is actually what's called the oversight view of the Earth, which is when astronauts go around the Earth and they look back at it and they see it for the first time kind of holistically and get that really awe-inspiring understanding of the Earth. So it has the cloud cover. It's actually the view you would see if you were floating in space. The original unveiling was supposed to be on Earth Day, but of course England got closed down. Luc Jerome is a British artist, so he could no longer actually make the piece for us. There is only 5 in the world, and I believe this is the only one in Canada. So it all got put on hold, but we thought what a great idea for reopening the museum to bring it in. So we were lucky enough to get it in and get it installed over the last couple of months. We do obviously have to have a crew come in to put it up, to position it, to work out where it should be, so that it's got the best viewpoint on each floor. So you can see it from the top, the Arctic on the 4th floor. On the 3rd floor is Canada. So there's some cloud cover, of course, because there always is, but Canada is there, and then you would go over and you probably see Russia and aspects of that into Northern Europe. And then you can see Africa, and then you can see Antarctica from the ground floor. So all of that positioning is actually quite logistical under a pandemic, because we have to make sure our staff are COVID-free, that they're socially distancing, that we're all wearing masks when you come in to install it. All of our staff are wearing masks, and we're expecting all of our visitors to wear masks as well, if they're over 2. Additionally, we are talking about social distancing, so we have a 2-meter social distancing rule between bubbles of people, and our capacity is much lower. So we have a capacity for the museum overall, which is about 250 people, and each gallery also has a specific capacity. And what you'll see, which is new, is a little bit of quite neat technology which tells the visitor before they go into a gallery what the capacity of that gallery is and how many people currently in it. So, you know, most galleries have about a capacity of maybe 50 people. It varies on the different galleries, and it will just tell you how many people, and you may need to wait, or you may decide to go to another gallery. But that's been something that we've been really pleased to put in place, and it's working really well.
Well, that does it for this week's episode of Operation Support Local. Again, thank you so much for your positive feedback, and encourage you, if you have a story idea for us, visit our website at rogerstv.com. Make sure you tune in each and every Friday at 7:30 p.m. for new episodes of Operation Support Local.